Okay, really quickly I want to go over the a personal because we've already seen it with gustar, but you're going to see it throughout in different instances throughout the Spanish language. The a personal is first identified by this right here, the letter a. And what it does is it's used to refer to someone or when something is done for or to someone. Okay? So if you hit someone, you would need to use personal a to recount that event. If you give someone a gift, you would use personal a. And whenever we're using gustar, we use personal a because remember that our verb gustar isn't actually conjugated for the person that likes the thing. So the way we close the loop to bring it back to that individual that likes the thing or the activity is by using that personal a. So in that first example, you have a mí no me gusta estudiar. So if we were to break it apart, literally, to me, studying does not please me. That's what our translation would be, literally. So you can see how, number one, if you're thinking of it in a communication sense, we don't translate it exactly the way we think of it in English, okay? So what this personal a does is, you guys have learned that gustar kind of works backwards. Well, what it does is it brings it back to the person who it is that is pleased by that activity, okay? It kind of gives us a point of reference. It tells us the person that we're focusing on. Another way it's used is with recipients of gifts, of money, of words. If you call someone that person, you're going to use personal a with that person. If you tell that person something, you're going to use personal a in that sentence, okay? So let's look at the next sentence. You can pick it out. You can see the personal a right here. And what you're going to see is this is a person. Mi sobrino is my nephew. Okay? So we've got a person. We're giving something to that person, so we need personal a. Okay? We need personal a. So let's look again. In this instance, personal a kind of closes the loop again. So basically what this is saying is, to him I give gifts to my nephew. Okay? So it is confusing, I will admit, from the standpoint of literal translation, but you got to remember that it's in there to kind of close the statement loop, if you want to think of it that way. All right? To him I give gifts to my nephew. Le doy regalos a mi sobrino. A mi sobrino. Now let's look at an example using you all. Okay? The students. Entregan los exámenes al señor Griffin. Well, we have something new here. Al. Remember that if you mention someone by using their title, you use the definite article, and that definite article would be el. Well, we've got to use personal a because I am a person, so when you guys give me the exámenes, we've got to use personal a. So if we have that right there, in Spanish, what we try to do is eliminate this combination of sounds right here. And what we do is we join them together to form al. So entregan los exámenes al señor Griffin. All right, and the last one, and that's going to bring up another conversation in a moment, but the last one. A mi hermana le presto el carro. This example is a lot like this second one. We've just kind of reversed the pieces of the sentence. We've got the personal a first, that's right there. So, to my sister, to her I lend the car. Okay, again, don't focus on so much well, I don't get why it sounds backwards to me. The translation doesn't make sense. Don't focus so much on that. Focus on the why we are using the personal I, because it's closing the communication loop. Okay? Because if we were to just start this phrase off with mi hermana le presto el carro, mi hermana is just kind of off out here by itself. Nothing is bringing the statement, the lending of the car, back to her. Hope that makes sense. Without the personal I, the mi hermana is off out here by itself, and the lending of the car really doesn't have a recipient. The lending of the car doesn't have a recipient. We're able to do that by using the personal I. Okay? So again, it closes the communication loop. That is personal I. So you've seen it used with gustar, and you've seen it in these two examples being something given as gifts, or being something being loaned to someone. And this one, you see it as actual physical handing over of some item. Okay? You all handing the exams to me. All right? Pause the video if you need to jot this down, because I'm going to erase. All right, so we talked about al being the contraction of a and el. Let's talk about a couple more. We've got a plus el equals al, and we've got de plus el. What do you think it gives you? Right, del. All right, so how do we use that? How do we use del? Well, you know that de is from or of, and it's generally used when we're talking about possession. So if we want to say el libro es de el señor Griffin. You should be able to look at that and see that we're going to have to make a change. What's wrong? This is wrong. This here is wrong. Can't have that. We've got to do something about it, and what we do about it is we make a contraction with de and el, and we get del. El libro es del señor Griffin. All right? All right, so hopefully some of you are from here in Albemarle. You've been to El Ranchito. You might know the owner of his name is Gustavo. Well, if we were going to say that Gustavo is the owner of the restaurant, we would say Gustavo es el dueño de el restaurante. Well, you should already be looking at that phrase and saying, "Hey, Senor Griffin, something is wrong. Something is wrong." And you are right. What is wrong? That right there is wrong. And what do we have to do with it? What do we have to do with it? We make it del. So those are your contractions. Those are your contractions. And I'll give you one more example using al. Llamamos al profesor para las respuestas. Llamamos al profesor para las respuestas. Okay, we call the professor for the answers. All right. Well, you could already guess how to undo this contraction. You would have personal a, because profesor is a person. And you would guess correctly by saying that el would be the article that we would use in front of profesor, but we can't have a, el, so we have al. We bring them together. Okay. I hope this helps make the personal a little bit clearer for you. It's not something that we focus on too much as a lesson in class, but it is something that you will see in your reading, and it's something that has come up in the discussion about gustar, and a few students have asked me about, so I wanted to take this time to make it a bit more clear. And then it also led into the introduction of the contraction del. Like I said, I hope this helps make your reading a little bit clearer. Now you see those words del and al, and you know exactly what they are a combination of. Have a good evening. Take care.